This video is about the Operation Entebbe, also called Operation Thunderbolt. In the year 1976, German and Palestinian terrorists hijacked an Air France flight, brought the plane to Uganda. There, the Israeli Defense Forces freed 102 hostages. To be mentioned are the Israeli commander of the infantry, Dan Shomron, from the South Command, Yekutiel Adam, the commander of the Air Force, Benjamin Pelet, and especially the commanding officer of the Sayeret Matkal, Yonatan Netanyahu. Now, an Air France flight was on its way to Paris via Athens, and in Athens, it was not only that 54 passengers, but also 4 terrorists boarded the plane. Shortly after takeoff, they took over control, forced the pilot to fly to Benghazi, and from there they continued their journey to Entebbe. In Entebbe, at least 4 other additional terrorists joined their comrades. Idi Amin saw his chance to shine on an international stage, and also he supported very much the terrorists who were then on Entebbe airport. What happened there? The hostages were held in the terminal building, and then they were separated into Jews and non-Jews. The non-Jews were allowed to fly home. So, 2 things I had to mention. Firstly, there was a very heroic and brave behavior by the French captain and his crew. They said, we have responsibility from takeoff to landing the whole way through, so we will remain with the Jewish hostages, even though the captain and his crew were non-Jews. And now, the selection of Jews, non-Jews, that reminded the world of the Holocaust, and it causes disgust all over the world and a shock in Israel. And that is clear, something has to be done. The hijackers demanded the release of 53 Palestinians, not only from Israeli prisons, but also from prisons in Kenya, France, Switzerland, and Germany. There were some diplomatic efforts, but they all failed. And then Israel said, all right, we go in direct negotiations, but the ultimatum has to be extended for a few days to the 4th of July. Now the Operation Thunderbolt, 4th of July, 4 Hercules transport planes were flying on low levels so that they couldn't be picked up by radar, flying to Entebbe, and they were landing there at 2300 hours Israeli Standard Time. There, the Sayeret Matkal, so the most elite unit of the Israel Defense Forces, disembarked, and they had, quite cleverly, they had 1 Mercedes and 2 Land Rovers, so imitating Idi Amin. They drove to the main tower and terminal building. On the way, the 2 Ugandan soldiers, they had to be shot, so the surprise element was slightly gone. Anyway, Sayeret Matkal charged into the terminal and killed all of the terrorists. Also, unfortunately, 3 hostages died in the firefight. And in parallel, Israeli troops destroyed at least the bulk of the Ugandan jet fighters, the bulk of the Ugandan Air Force. And the hostages are then transported to the Israeli aircraft, to the Hercules, to be flown out. Unfortunately for the Israeli unit, Netanyahu, commanding officer of the Sayeret Matkal, was killed during a rearguard action with Ugandan troops. But anyway, 53 minutes after touchdown, the Israeli aircraft departed Entebbe for Kenya and then from there to Israel. Now, what was Idi Amin's reaction after the successful Operation Thunderbolt? He actually he murdered Dora Bloch, a 75-year-old hostage that was in a Ugandan hospital. Also, he ordered the murder of several hundred Kenyans living in Uganda. Anyway, his position was definitely weakened. But now, there was again global respect to the Israeli Defense Forces. That was amazing. Another proof of what they can do. Furthermore, Israel stated that the small country is very proud to defend its core values of humanity, the dignity of man, human life, and human freedom. The West applauded the Israeli operation, the East condemned it. This was Operation Entebbe or Operation Thunderbolt in 5.